Today I was wanting to talk about, because I've been talking about, the raising of our vibration and our frequency, and that's really what we're doing, right? We know everything is energy, we know everything is vibration. Quantum physics is able to prove that everything has its own vibration and is frequency, and I believe as we're raising ours, and I was just saying in the last video, telling people come out of the closet, share your experiences, people are becoming more and more telepathic. And in another video I did about animal communication, and it made me think of when I used to work at Dolphin Human Therapy. And I worked there for 7 years. So I got to know the dolphins' personalities really, really well. And I saw them every single day for 7 years. And they worked with, we did therapy with the special needs kids. So the motivation was, the thought was that, the kids who were there getting therapy because they had some kind of a disability would get to interact with the dolphins as the motivator to when they would do when they would be able to do a task that a therapist would ask them to do if they were working on speech or motor skills or occupational or physical therapy, right? And what was so interesting about the dolphins is of how they responded to the children. They really, really responded differently to those kids than they did to the public, the general public. I witnessed it firsthand. I saw it every day. The trainers would confirm it. They knew their animals very well. All the dolphins that we worked with were born in captivity, so they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to go back out in the wild. They were raised in captivity. So, but watching how they were, because I was the photographer, so that was my job. I was the observer. I observed, and I would sit on a platform, a whole session, and I would do it all day. The different platforms, got to know each animal's personality. They were also very different. And I got to observe their behavior with the kids. And it was so interesting how they, on an energetic, and now that I look back, a telepathic, could connect with those kids, and those kids could connect with them, because many of these kids couldn't speak. But I believe that they were speaking telepathically to the animals, and the dolphins were communicating back to them telepathically. And they would know which child they could, that they had to be extra gentle with, depending on their physical disability, or if it was not necessarily a physical disability, but a developmental disability. Like my sister was developmentally disabled. That's why I got into the work of working with the community, because of my sister who passed away. She was developmentally disabled. But anyway, the animals, the dolphins, were amazing with these kids. And I would notice, because I was there, I was the watcher. As the watcher, and taking photos, I would notice that with certain kids, if they didn't have a physical disability, they could be more, they could go faster. And in a sense, like they could play quicker. They could take them for fast rides. They could go all around the lagoon. It was in a natural environment. It wasn't in a pool. They could go all the way around. We were on the Gulf, around the whole lagoon, and just fly off fast, and and you would see these kids light up and laugh, and their faces were just like, there was just such pure joy, right? And then you would have some of the other kids who maybe had more of a physical disability and couldn't do that, and were working with a PT, a physical therapist. You would see the gentleness of how they would approach these kids. And what was really funny was some of especially the girls, the females, they were the matriarchs of the pod, and they were more mature, and they had some of them had their babies, were the younger juvenile dolphins in the same lagoon. The boys, were more rambunctious, as boys are, and you would see like certain dolphins would connect with a certain child on such a level that it was almost felt a like that's their baby. And you would see them nuzzle, with their rostrum. That's what that's called, the rostrum. Like, go in, like if a hand couldn't move, you would see them like putting not their rostrum, like under the hand to try to open it. And it was like such a symbiotic, like amazing thing to watch. And I was like in awe constantly of just the amazing connection that this community had, the special needs community had with these animals. And it was a completely different feel for public. So we didn't do public swims. That wasn't part of the program that we were closed to the public, but on the weekends they were open to the public. So the trainers they loved it when it was us being there, because the dolphins just seemed to enjoy it so much more. And I swear, now that have opened up and I can see the world in a different way than when I worked there, I do think that they were speaking telepathically to each other. And those dolphins were talking to those kids in their mind, and those kids were talking back to the dolphins, and they were understanding each other. It was incredible. It was the most incredible experience I ever had in my life. And I swear I could cry. I will cherish it for the rest of my life. It was so beautiful. So that makes me realize that we have the capabilities as humans to open up to so much more than we have been told that we can do. And we have so much more power than we have ever been, it was innately given to us, this power. And the people and the things that want to control us try to scare us, but it's time to embrace it, because the connections to each other, and the connections to the animals, and the connections to Earth is so much deeper than we even realize. So I just wanted to share my story about the dolphins and the kids, and maybe I'll do a whole series of stories on that one day. But I don't know, I just felt called to do that today. All right, everybody. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you next time.